Hi, good afternoon or early evening if you're on the East Coast. My name is Deanne Battle. This is the Composite. We're in season 4, episode 10. I checked. How's everybody doing? All right, so we're gonna be super cash today. I'll explain why in a second. So that requires me to get moisturized here. I'm a low budget broadcast, but I do not want to be an ashy broadcast. Cannot have that. All right. So yes, casual today. As it happens for me every summer, if I have an unstructured schedule, meaning I've got stuff going on, but I don't have to necessarily be a particular place at a particular time, my sleep schedule gets all the way off. By nature, I'm a night owl, but then what happens is that I'll be up, like last night I was cleaning the kitchen at 11 p.m. At 11 p.m. I had the dishwasher going at midnight, so I'm doing all this cleaning, and then I fell asleep before 2 a.m., but then woke up again at 3:30, and then I woke up again when the sun rose. So it was what the hell, and then by the time I fell back asleep, woke up, did errands today, I was like, oh crap, I got to get ready for the show. So that time blindness thing definitely gets to me. But all of that being said, super glad to be here. And like I said, we'll keep it casual. Now, only 6 minutes late. Yay! I was actually preparing the book giveaway part 2. For anybody that has checked out a few episodes, during the field trip episode where I was out and about, I had some books for a book giveaway and no one bit. But here's the thing, I have to move by the end of the month, preferably before if I can swing it. But what that means is I've got a bunch of books that seem really cool, but it might not make sense for me to hold on to them and put them in storage or bring them with me or whatever. So I was like, oh, okay, I can do a book giveaway, for those that are interested. But like I said, I didn't hear from anyone. So what I wanted to do first, before we chat about general effluvia, because that's what a lot of our culture and current events have turned into, effluvia. But nevertheless, wanted to bring you some books before we get into that section. I'm just prepping some stuff here. Wanted to make sure I had my poems pulled up early. Again, if you've watched the broadcast at all before, I'll read poems of the day, just to give us a little truth and beauty with everything that's happening in the world. But my little ancient iPad here is sometimes slow loading, so I wanted to make sure that was loaded first. All right, so you will see me dip out and dip back in with the books. Baller status. All right. Oh, that's where that was. I had my bracelet was in with the books. Okay. Alrighty, folks. So here's what we'll do. There are 5 books, and this is the second time that I'm offering them, but there are other books where I just decided to throw those in as well. Okay. So this one here is called Quarter Life. It's by Devika Reggae, I believe. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. Okay. It's about a Wall Street executive who decides to go home to Mumbai. So, yeah, definitely up my alley, because they mention Salman Rushdie. I love him. Amitav Ghosh. I'm familiar with the name, but I don't think I've read his work. All right, so that's Quarter Life. This one here, Andrew O'Hagan, Caledonian Road. The cover is super cool. And this one, looks like it's either about a mentorship or relationship between an art historian and one of his students. Okay. I'm not sure what else. So yeah, it looks like kind of like a buddy adventure story, or like I said, or a romance. This one's called Broiler by Eli Craner. All right, and this one is about, oh, cool. All right, so this one is about two undocumented workers at a chicken plant in Springdale, Arkansas. So I lived in Rogers, Arkansas for a couple of years, so I'm very familiar with Springdale. Yeah. I don't know, I might have to hold on to this one. I want to see how they describe the area. I'm working on a short story that's set in Arkansas. And the thing about like Northwest Arkansas is just, it's so beautiful. It's there are like wildflowers and, you know, lakes and rivers, and it just is very, it seems like it just has so many different types of scenic, you know, views, whereas like, you know, being from the East Coast, you're really used to like, if you do see, you know, nature, a lot of the East Coast doesn't have nature, it's like concrete, but if you see nature, it's like forests. But I was really struck by how like, oh, I could go to one area and there's a lake, and then I drive 10 to 15 minutes and then I see like, you know, a waterfall. Like it was like cleaner. So it was that part of it was very tranquil and nice. The people, not as easy at all. I did not relate to the people out there, but the land itself was very beautiful. So that was, again, Broiler. So if you want to read that story. All right. This one's called The Nansen Factor, and the subtitle is Refugee Stories, and it's by Alexandra Grabe. All right. And this is about, oh, wow, a Norwegian diplomat who helped stateless people get passports from 1922 to 1937. So as the world was, you know, ramping up to authoritarian fascism, so I guess this is coming out at an apt time. This is his story of what he was doing. Oh, this looks really interesting too. See, this is my problem with books. Oh my gosh. All right. And this one here is called Old King, and it's by Maxim Loskutov. Maxim Loskutov. I'm sorry for butchering his name. All right. So Old King, let me try it one more time. Maxim Loskutov. And what is this one about? Oh, they're associating him with Cormac McCarthy. I don't know if I've spoken about Cormac McCarthy here. I have like a love-hate relationship. He's really, like, he draws me in, and I've read 2 of his novels, but he just has such a nihilistic view of humanity. I'm like, well, what is the point of writing this freaking book? So I get very frustrated with him, but I mean, I haven't stopped reading it. Now this one here is about, where can we get like a brief summary? Oh, snap. It looks like it's kind of a fictionalized approach to the life of Theodore Kaczynski, otherwise known as the Unabomber. I wasn't expecting that at all. And the funny thing is that, this is probably going to be really intense. This is a good slate of books, you guys. You should definitely get one or two of these. All right, so those were the old books. And it's funny because even though I tried to do the book giveaway once before, it must have slipped my mind what these were about. And actually, it looks like only two of these have come out so far. So, just because I'm a teacher and, I know different people or whatever, sometimes people like have early access to books. And so, again, if people leave it out and I have room in my bag, I always take them. So that is the first slate. And then if I'm not explaining this well, but you're interested, just DM me and then hopefully follow this account, the Composite with Deanne Battle, and then follow our YouTube channel. I'm double posting the content here to YouTube. Any links that I share here, I'm also sharing on YouTube. So if you're just not an Instagram person, you can catch us at the Composite, and then I'll re-link to our site in the comments, but it's also, I think, linked in my bio. All right. Now, here are the books from the library. So here's the thing. For the last several years, I've lived in various suburbs, and what I've noticed is, another fun fact. The first thing that I do when I move, which is hilarious because I've moved so many times, every time I move, usually the first full day that I'm there, I go and get my library card and do my voter registration. So I do it like in one swoop. I'm like, okay, is the dog secured? Do I have my stuff, or, everything, is my shit sitting in the apartment? And then I go get my library card and my voter registration. And what I've noticed about suburban libraries is they cycle through books quite quickly. So let me show you what I'm talking about. So my library here, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, I have 7 books to give away here. And these were books where it looks like they just had them in the stacks. And I guess people weren't taking the books out. And so when the people don't take books out, they just give it away for free. And like, these books don't even look touched. Okay. I see what I did. No, now 2 of these books are not from the library. 2 of these books, I just stacked them with the library fines, but they actually should have been stacked with that first set of books that I just mentioned to you. All right, so this one is called Twilight Territory by Andrew X. Pham. Right, cool cover. And then what is this one about? This one came out in January. Oh, and this is a really big novel. I'm just looking at how it's divvied up. Okay, it is about love, war, and resistance post World War II, Japanese occupied Vietnam. Okay, all right. So this is a historical novel here. Again, looks really super interesting. All right, and this one is a nonfiction title, and it's by Jonathan Metzl, and it's called What We've Become, Living and Dying in a Country of Arms. So a light summer beach read, okay? And then, oh no. What? Oh, okay. I was about to say, am I mistaken? No, it is a nonfiction read, but it looks like it's a combination of a memoir and like a sociological study, so to speak. So basically, the author, he's a gun policy scholar, and he basically wants to focus on the aftermath of all these shootings that we have all the time here in America, and analyze, like, well, what are mass shootings a symptom of? So, but it's just, it took me a while because the summary in the book cover, it seems like, again, it's a combination between memoir, opinion, and his scholarly research. So it's definitely creative nonfiction, but it seems like it's a blend between, straight up academic work and personal work. Interesting. Okay, now here are the library books. Again, most of these don't even look like they've been checked out more than maybe once at the most. Ooh. All right. Lord. Okay. Now, one of my absolute favorite writers, Julia Alvarez, and this one's called Saving the World. She had a novel that came out earlier this year. When I get settled in my new place and stuff, that's going to be one of the first ones I want to read. And so this one is about a writer that does historical research, and then as she's doing historical research, the research is intersecting with experiences and changes in her life. So again, that's Saving the World by the amazing Julia Alvarez. Okay, and this one is called Zabor, or the Psalms, by Kamil Daoud. And this feels a little like deja vu. Have I tried to offer these books before? And here's the thing. It's not that like I forget 100% what I talk about, but I think because, hold on a second. Oh, I see what I did here. Okay. So the stand, it clicks, but it's sometimes you have to turn it clockwise to click or counterclockwise, and I didn't remember which way. So yes, it is clockwise to click. Okay. But I was just saying, it feels like I've offered these library books before. But the reason why sometimes it's hard to remember is I think on the topics where I have engagement, where like a friend will send me a DM, or when they'll call me and be like, oh yeah, I agree with you, or they say something in the comments, because, one of the reasons I started this was to engage more and start conversations about different things. So when I have engagement on certain things, then I remember, okay, yeah, I talked about this and so responded. So I know that I don't need to talk about it again. But anywho, so for Zabor, this is... Oh, it's pretty much about an orphan that gets lost in a world of books, and then he goes on an adventure because, well, he's an orphan because his mother is dead. unfortunately. But then his father is about to die. And so he goes to his father. So it's about that journey that he goes on. Oh, that sounds so sad. And this one here, this looks like more of a YA title, but I'm not 100% sure. And it's called 1,000 Never Evers, and it's by Shanna Berg. Okay, so it looks like a YA title. It's about, looks like a middle school aged or teenage girl who loses her brother, and she's trying to come to grips with that and the different dynamics in her family in 1963 Mississippi. So yeah, all of these topics are so different. As a writer, sometimes I just get so impressed and intimidated by some of the other stuff that people are coming up with now. I'm just like, damn, I gotta step my game up in terms of, the ways in which I expand my mind to create different worlds here. This is more of a self-help title, and it's called, the authors are David S. Kidder and Noah D. Oppenheim, and it's called The Intellectual Devotional, Revive Your Mind, Complete Your Education, and Roam Confidently with the Cultured Class, right? So I wonder if this is like a revision of the Preppy Handbook. I don't know if anybody's like old enough to remember that. And the funny thing is I heard about it as a teenager, but I never really got to see a copy of it or just like have a better sense of it until I was an adult. But it looks like it's kind of an encyclopedia of things that you should be familiar with, like if you want to roll with the bougies. So that's interesting. The ways in which we curate culture or decide what's highbrow, middlebrow, and lowbrow culture always fascinates me. I like all of it because I'm nosy, but, I know people are big on making those distinctions. All right, and this last one here is by a household name, Michael Pollan. So if you're familiar with The Omnivore's Dilemma, or, any of his essays, articles, so on and so forth. And this one is called How to Change Your Mind, What the New Science of Psychedelics Teaches Us About Consciousness, Dying, Addiction, Depression, and Transcendence. Another light beach read, okay? So that is How to Change Your Mind. So that was the last one. But listen, that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. That's a dozen books, right? So get your shop on. If you're interested, this is a book giveaway. I'll be altruistic about it. If I can get you to follow the account and watch more episodes and follow the account on YouTube, I would be appreciative. But if you're just like, hey, Deanne, I don't have time for that, but I do have time to read, point well taken. I will send you some books. And when I was in the shower, it occurred to me, I was like, what if somebody internationally wants a book? We'll cross that bridge when we get to it. I need to actually get somebody interested in taking the books before I try to be choosy about where they come from. All right. So that is that. Now, let me just take a second or two to put these books away. And my dog is here. Anytime I rattle plastic or a paper bag, so I have some of these books in a paper bag, she's like, food, food, food. And so she looked up, and then she looked and she was like, damn, it's just books. And now she's walking away from me in disgust. You're not a true pet owner unless you can disappoint your pets. All right. That was the dog yawning. I don't know if you heard her. Oh, hey. I didn't need 2 bags after all. I fit them all together. All right, so those are ready to rock and roll. So if you message me about those books, give me like a day, and then I'll send them out. I'll be on like Amazon only through the postal system, right? So I'll send it quickly like Amazon, but I can't guarantee on the back end when you'll get it. All right, just feeling a little silly today. Now, what do we want to discuss? I don't know if it's a discussion, but just a question or something that I'm thinking about here. So Alice Munro, the celebrated short story writer, died. And then I'm not sure which day, but, I saw that she passed away, and I was like, oh, okay. I mean, that's what happens as you get older. But I was like, oh, shucks. And so, I'm liking posts, and I'm like, oh, okay, well. And then the next day, everybody's like, wait a minute. Her daughter was molested by her step-husband, and, she took him to court. He admitted it in letters. I don't know if he was convicted, because I just didn't want to read about that topic right now. It always devastates me when I hear about people abusing that sacred trust between an adult and a child. It's just, to me, it's like one of the worst things that you can do. So, it was open and known, court documents were out and everything. But to be honest, I had never heard that. I knew absolutely nothing about Alice Munro, her personal life, like if she had kids, how many kids. I just didn't know anything about her. And so I guess there were other writers defending her, and then other people trying to cancel her and stuff. And, it just always brings up, the age-old question. Sorry, this is the shadow in here. It's a little funky. Hold on. Always brings up the age-old question. Can you separate the art from the artist? And, oh, that wasn't helpful really at all. All right, that's what I got. I've got lights on and everything, but just the way the sun is, not setting, but maybe thinking about setting soon. It just is lighting it weird. So the age-old question is, well, can you separate the art from the artist? And I think the cultural phenomenon of cancellation, which I want to say I started hearing people use the word canceled, I think around 2016, 2017-ish. That doesn't mean that it wasn't out before then, but that was just when I realized it was a thing. And I would say the first 2 or 3 years that I heard of the word, I never used it because I was talking to a friend of mine, and I was like, I don't like the idea of canceling a human. I'm not a cable package. Like, it just... there's something that seemed very divorced from humanity, and the older I get, I'm so concerned with humanity, ways in which we can authentically and freely express all of what that means for the good and the bad. Not in ways to hurt people or harm society, but ways in which we can possibly be vulnerable, be frail, and then get over it and find a way back from it. And that's always been my problem with the concept of cancellation is if you can't, like, so for instance, if I'm talking about like DirecTV or something, if I cancel it, right, it's completely severed. And so what does it mean to cancel someone out of society? Because you're not creating a path to restorative justice. You're not creating a path to rehabilitation. You're just saying, okay, no, you're done. So I've always had an issue with it. But in the original contexts that I saw it used, it made sense, because at the time I was primarily seeing various people of color and people in the LGBTQ community talking about canceling folks. And the way that I saw them using it was, listen, this is a person that has a platform, this is a person that has power, and they're wielding that to further cause harm to marginalized people. So I'm like, well, I can get on board with there needing to be consequences. So don't get me wrong, there need to be consequences. But again, when you cancel someone, so when you sever that connection, there's not a way back. And then what I saw happening was people began to wear cancellation as a badge of honor. Why? Because the amount of people that, piled up in terms of folks that were getting canceled, it were a lot of names. And so if you've ever played kickball, right, you've got your two teams, but there always gets that to be that point in kickball where you have one person versus one person on the other side. And then everybody else is pretty much checked out of the game because they're on the sidelines. And I felt like, well, is this what cancellation does? Because it felt like that's what it was doing. So that was one trend I noticed. And the other trend I noticed is cancellation has not been applied equally. In fact, I would argue that the only people that seem to receive any type of consequences of being canceled are the very communities that I initially saw using the terminology, right? So we're going to use social media and use our people power to make powerful people understand that you just can't say anything. Now, that doesn't mean you don't have free speech, but what it does mean is if you have a platform, again, or a job or something where you're wielding power over society and you're using that, your speech in a reckless way to cause harm, that there need to be consequences. And if we're honest, most of our worlds, a majority of our world is still run by older white men. And those people don't get canceled. They just don't. Let me think about it. Anyone that's had like a consequence or whatever, I mean, the radio personality Imus is coming to mind. This was years ago where he called women on a basketball team, quote unquote, nappy-headed hoes. It was just really disgusting. And he got canceled for like a hot second, and then he got a job somewhere else. All right. So, or just even if we want to be extreme, all of these police officers that commit extrajudicial killings, whether they choke someone to death or whether they shoot someone unjustifiably, all of those people just get transferred. They don't get canceled, right? So how does this relate to Alice Munro? Because if folks knew about this, I did not, and I've read a lot of her work, but I've never seen an Alice Munro interview. So for me, her presence in terms of media was totally absent. So at that point, as a reader, I'm not, like, I wasn't really compelled. She's not someone who, like, I really cared to, like, learn anything about, honestly. And so people are like, well, this was in the public and so on and so forth. But it's like, why are y'all waiting until she died, though? Because to me, what that looks like is she got a pass for decades and decades of her career, and no one made a big deal of it. And now that she's dead, people are sounding sanctimonious, like, on the internet. And that's not helpful. So again, we have a powerful white writer who, you know, a lot of I know Joyce Carol Oates, I read her defense, if you will, of Alice Munro, and other people are splaining and, you know, defending her and stuff like that. And then there are people like, oh, you know, this is a wrong take and I should cancel you as well and stuff. But it's just like, again, where was this outrage and stuff before she died? Like, for me, it's not helpful to, I'm not saying people have fake outrage. They're rightly outraged. But what I'm saying is it feels fake outrage to me, in the sense that, had I known before, meaning if I had have looked through my thread, or, you know, any other social media posts, and people were like, hey, Alice Munro, you know, let her daughter be abused and molested for years and years and defended her husband, I would have stopped reading her, right? Like, so it's, for me, that's just, you know, that's a line I'm not going to cross. But to wait now retroactively and try to cancel her, I'm just kind of like, I don't think it's productive. I mean, it's like any type of concept or slang. I'm thinking of the word woke. Any of these concepts or terminologies that are related to social accountability and activism, they always get weaponized. So at a certain point, it's like, well, is it even worth talking about? Because, again, the whole point of cancellation was to get justice in the social media and media space for people that are being victimized, for people that are being marginalized. And if you wait until the lady is dead, it just totally, you're literally beating a dead horse. Like, what is she gonna do, right? Like, you can't make her atone for anything. You can't, I mean, the only exception to that in my mind is if you're saying, for instance, like, I haven't read her obituaries, but let's say her obituaries omitted all of these facts that are legally documented, that are legally known, then I would say, okay, you can go to the New York Times, you can go to the Boston Globe and say, no, we want accountability from you because you're rewriting the history of a problematic person. But for the actual person, what does it mean now? I mean, does it mean that folks, you know, because all of these short story workshops that I go to over the years, oh, you need to read Alice Munro. Oh, you should read Alice Munro. Oh, this story is like Alice Munro. Like, so it's just like, so that's how I started reading her. And it wasn't that I was avoiding her, but she lives in, in Canada. I just was kind of like, you know, but I got into her because I was just like, by the third time somebody in a workshop was like, you should read Alice Munro. I was like, okay, I need to read her. So is that going to stop? Because when we're thinking about art and culture products, things that emerge in that sphere, if you're canceling people from high, middle, and lowbrow art, you got to replace it with something else. So unfortunately, it feels like a literary conversation that is much ado about nothing, because I know that a lot of writers, and I guess I'll pat myself on the back a little bit. I've noticed a lot of writers, kind of to save time with teaching, will just have like go-to books and go-to stories that they recommend to everybody in workshops, because, you know, I've definitely taken workshops with people, and then I've met other emerging writers, and I'm like, oh, I took a workshop with so and so, and then the other person is like, oh yeah, did they recommend this story to you, or did they recommend this novel to you? Oh, they recommend that to everyone. All right, so if you want to cancel Alice Munro, y'all gotta stop doing that shit, and you have to be up on your game. Now, in my instance, I've done the reverse, right? Because a lot of writers, they have stories or poems or essays published, then they have a book published, then they start teaching. Or, you know, they get a contract. They do their MFA, they get a contract, and then they start teaching. So the teaching comes after. But for me, the teaching came first. And I have, you know, my attention span is so short. I don't even want to keep reading the same thing more than 2 or 3 times. So I'm always looking for new writers to introduce my students to, you know, to introduce myself to. So give you examples. When the Me Too movement was at its height, and I heard about at that time, they were allegations, but the very credible allegations about Junot Diaz and Sherman Alexie, I was just like, oh shit, because I teach them. And so I was just like, you know, I read the articles and stuff, and I made the determination that on an individual level, if I'm working with a student, I'll say, listen, there are elements of your work that remind me of Sherman Alexie. He's problematic because of X, Y, and Z. I'm just putting his name out there. You can decide whether or not you want to read him. So I can do that on an individual basis, but I no longer add those 2 writers to my syllabus. So that's, you know, what I do. And I'm not saying that that's the right thing to do, but I'm saying it required me to go back to the drawing board from a curricular and a pedagogical standpoint, so I'm not just offering the same go-tos. And I think part of the reason, if we want to keep it a buck, why people are defending Alice Munro so fiercely, is it's going to require you to read different people now. And some folks don't want to do it. So what does that mean? Because I think it's an important discussion to have, but again, we're having it when she's dead, which is not helpful to me, in my opinion. And that old white lady got away with it, right? She got away with it. What would this conversation look like if she were Asian American, or if she was Black, or any other identity, if she were Muslim? And so when we use a different terminology, identity politics, that is the political part of it. I don't think acknowledging different identities in the way that they enhance our perspective for art, I don't think that's a problem, but it becomes political because the rules are just not evenly applied. I'm still trying to think about someone from the dominant society involved in art that was truly, truly canceled. Now, I know Kevin Spacey was technically canceled, but it feels like he's going to be on his way back because I've, seen headlines. I didn't want to read the article, but I've seen headlines just about him talking about being in financial ruin from, the lawsuits in terms of the sexual harassment and other things, the allegations against him. So for me, that seems kind of like a comeback tour. I mean, even Harvey Weinstein, he was in jail. He's out of jail. The charges disappeared. Now he's going to be retried. I'm just like, what is going on? And I'm not trying to be flippant about these situations. I'm just trying to give myself wiggle room because I'm not well versed in them. And part of the reason I'm not well versed in them is because I get frustrated that if we're saying that someone is canceled, again, it never seems to stick when those people look like me. I'm sorry, when those people don't look like me. It will be interesting to see what happens with Jonathan Majors. I know he is dating Megan Good, and he is on a comeback tour, but I don't know how that's going. The online discourse, because I haven't really spoken to anybody about it recently, but the online discourse has very much been just kind of talking about his weird demeanor and his outfits, but people aren't saying whether or not they're willing to pay to see him in a movie again. And, to be dropped from the Marvel universe, that's really hard to come back from. And I'm not saying he should or shouldn't have that opportunity, but what I'm saying is if people want to create a culture where power and privilege are somehow revoked, I don't think this is really working. It just doesn't seem like it's effective or productive at all. Anything else to say about that? No, not really. I hope some of that was clear. But, again, at one layer, can you separate the art from the artist? But the other layer is if, as a society, we're truly invested in the concept of cancellation, can there somehow be a transparent articulation of what that looks like? Because it's never applied evenly. And it seems like, again, in terms of where it's emerged, right? Because we see that Brianna Joy Gray got canceled from The Hill. And then I really have no care in the world for Candace Owen, but she was canceled from the Daily Wire, I believe, for behaviors or, beliefs that she's articulated. And those are both Black women. It's just like, okay, if this concept of cancellation was somehow created so people are not using their power and their platforms to abuse non-white folks, people of other religions other than Christianity, people in the LGBTQ plus community, undocumented people, so on and so forth, disabled people. If it was supposed to be this vehicle or this mechanism to protect people, it's not working. It's just not working. And it seems like it's actually inducing more harm for those communities. And that's not what I want. I don't know what the other way forward is, but that is my response to Alice Munro. So you need to find another middle-class, middle-aged white woman who writes 25 to 45 page stories. I'm sure you can find somebody. All right. Now, I think I want to pull cards on this topic. What is my question? All right. So I have my Oracle deck here, and then I have some tarot cards. What's the question? Right, what? What does restorative justice look like when it comes to our favorite problematic artists? Okay. So yeah, we've got a lot of those, especially we live in a very expose culture. So now I'm seeing people who've been victimized. They don't even go to a lawyer first. They go to Twitter first. They go to X first, and they post everything there. And then they follow up on the legal end later, which is wild to me. Not because they shouldn't voice what's happened to them, but because I feel like if you go to social media first, I'm just wondering, doesn't that undermine the legal process? But that's neither here nor there. All right. So what does this restorative justice look like when it comes to our favorite problematic artists? All right. So I'm going to shuffle these. All right, so I'm going to pull one oracle card and maybe a few tarot cards. Oh. All right, so 3 came out. Interesting. Oh, this is going to be a really interesting read. All right, I'll show you these in a sec. All right, now I'm going to pull a few tarot cards. Terrible shuffler in general, but especially today. Alrighty, let's go. All right, again, so our question is, what does restorative justice look like when it comes to our favorite and problematic artists? Okay. Oh, snap. Okay. Okay, thank you. Wait, all right, let me not take those two. A couple of cards fell out, but I didn't technically pull them. Thank you. Oh. All right. So it seems like the tarot cards and the oracle cards are telling us stuff that's a little bit different, right? So for the oracle cards, we have compromise, the master teacher. We have survival, healing guides. And then we have psychic awareness, divine soul. And then I'll show you the tarot cards. So for the tarot cards, we have the King of Swords, we have the 8 of Cups, and then we have the 10 of Pentacles, right? So now, let's see what the book says for the oracle cards. And I'm not going to read the whole thing just because I pulled 3 oracle cards. But I'll summarize it. Okay, so for this one here, compromise, master teacher, it says some of the, associations are concession, fairness, democracy, neutrality, right? So that's what we were talking about. I didn't do anything with the deck beforehand. You saw me shuffle and just pull it. Oh, check this sentence out. Your master teacher is reminding you that nothing is entirely good or bad, even people, and that every person has their own version of reality, which may not necessarily agree with yours. Wow. Um, Be mindful not to be overly self-centered, however justified it may feel. Strive to be fair instead. Your master teacher's message, accept that your interests are no more or more or less important than those people around you, so that the only way to progress to higher ground is compromise. Okay, so I think that this card here is really referencing not the actual problematic artist, so to speak, but the pro and con responses either way. Meaning, maybe be a little bit more open-minded to people that continue to read Alice Munro. At the same time, they need to be respectful that you have a problem with her. Interesting. All right. 19. I'm just telling myself the number of the oracle card here. Okay. All right. So the second oracle card is Survivor and Healer Guides. Survival and Healer Guides. I need to work on my pronunciation here. All right. So some associations there: suspicion, endurance, vigilance, perseverance. This card is talking about forgiveness. And then it says, learn from your experiences and strengthen your boundaries and judgments. All human beings make grave and sometimes terrible mistakes. It's not your fault that you feel violated. It's a lesson to learn from. Their message, the danger has passed. You are safe. It is time now to heal and learn from your experience. Interesting. So I think this references, again, I said, well, she's dead and gone. She's buried. And again, that doesn't, and it shouldn't undermine her daughter's very real and terrible experience. But what it does mean is that kind of hooting and hollering to people on the internet about it maybe isn't as productive. And I think that that card is asking for self-forgiveness, because I think some of the rhetoric has been very much people feel embarrassed almost. Like, how could I, admire this writer when they were doing this terrible thing? It's like, well, you didn't know. So the survival part of it is maybe forgiving yourself, and then again, stepping back from the work. If you're like me, where you're like, once I know that, I can't unknow it, and I don't mess with people that harm children. But I'm not going to fault myself for reading Alice Munro in the past. Does that make sense? All right, and the last oracle card is here, the Psychic Awareness, and it says Divine Soul. So that is number 47. Okay, and some associations here: clairsentience, clairvoyance, reception, telepathy. Okay, some of this says, your psychic faculties are giving you access to the fourth dimension and are coming into contact with discarnate, enlightened helpers who can assist and guide you in beautiful ways. And then it also says, trust your vibes and embrace your psychic channels fully. What they're communicating is essential to fulfill your purpose. Ask your divine soul to lead you. Its message, embrace and trust what you receive. So I think this card, folks, is saying to however you feel about the Alice Munro situation, and again, in the larger context, what restorative justice looks like when it comes to our favorite problematic artists. I think it's saying do what you feel and then trust it. Because I think some of the argument comes into play when people feel like they want to be in a performative way on the right side of something, right? So, if everybody's going to cancel her, then I need to definitely be doing that. But if people are not canceling her, then like, how do I feel about, like, where do I go with that? Here it's just saying, no, it's however it makes you feel from an intuitive standpoint, then you need to roll with that. All right, so those are the oracle cards. That's interesting that those came out. All right, and then we'll look at the tarot cards and we'll do a couple of poems, and then it'll be the composite out. All right. So these came out together. All right. So the King of Swords is, swords are communication. And the King of Swords is, he's kind of authoritative and straight to the point and truthful, right? So the King of Swords is bringing forth a really kind of cutting element of truth. Eight of Cups is seen as walking away from something. And so this is why I kind of felt like the oracle cards and the tarot cards were saying different things. And then here, the Ten of Pentacles, it's kind of like a happy ending in a material legacy building sense. So thinking about, a family, creating a family that's like well off, or, being able to, again, leave inheritance for your children, things like that. So it's kind of community, like family, community, but that's wealth generating, or that is secure and abundant, even if we're not talking about money. So what is this saying? So I think it's saying that, like, at the end of the day, truth is the king, right? And so when you see the truth of the situation, you need to walk away in order to create a better legacy, or you need to move toward, maybe it's saying move toward an abundant legacy. And by that, I think in this instance, in terms of how I phrase the question, an abundant legacy would be one that honors, the truth of the situation, right? So I would say that these cards are really coming down on the side of not fucking with Alice Munro anymore, right? Because the truth of it is, she did love and defend a child predator, right? So then you walk away from that, and then the legacy, right, of art is not tainted, or you can kind of, cut her out of the picture, so to speak, and move to the happy ending. So that's kind of how I'm interpreting it. Interesting that it was a split. Well, it was a split conversation, right? I don't think that there's a perfect way to go about it. Again, like in my mind, I always think of Charles Dickens, because I just grew up having to read so much of his work. And then when I found out, like, freshman year of college, that he was, an alcoholic wife beater, and it's just like, oh, okay, like, but nobody's trying to cancel Charles Dickens. So that's why I just don't think it's evenly applied. It's like, can you retroactively apply it to people that have been dead for, hundreds of years, thousands of years? I mean, if we're honest, if we look at Shakespeare, right? I mean, just based on The Merchant of Venice and Othello alone, yeah, I mean, Shakespeare should be canceled. But he's not, right? The titans of Western culture, right? They're never canceled. So I just think it's a concept that I'm not going to say to get rid of it, right? Because who the hell am I? I'm just an English teacher that talks shit on the internet. But I do think I just am very suspicious of something that seems to only have negative consequences for non-white, non-male, non-quote-unquote normative people. Just... And I'm not trying to be a Pollyanna about it. We don't have anything that's applied equally. But this shit right here, like, people are not even pretending to, like, have any logic or any transparency in terms of how it's approached. So I'm just kind of like, Alrighty. Now, let's look at what the poems of the day are. This first one is called, from the Poetry Foundation, is called My Father's Nest by Dunya, Mikhail. My father's nest. Today, 4 little robins left the nest and flew away. I turn time to a month ago and see their nest growing over my home's lamp, stick by stick, beat by beat, song by song. I turn to yesterday and see their sunlit wings lifting from the nest, leaving shadows with open beaks. Today I miss them as I did my father when he left us and never returned. Death didn't give him a chance to get older. I've passed his age. He didn't even finish the story he told me about the orphan child who walked the earth, looking up at the sky because he heard the dead live there. He saw their faces in the clouds, and when he cried, the clouds rained with him. I turn time back, so my father brings me toys to share with neighborhood girls, pausing that moment while time takes the shape of a robin who doesn't seem to hear my calling behind. That's a quiet one. But the interesting thing, it's also about the failure of a parent, which, ultimately, that's what we've been talking about, the failure of a parent. And then the last poem here is from poets.org, and it's by Zan Forrest Phillips. And this poem is called No One Wants to Be Rough Anymore. No one wants to be rough anymore. You haven't had a salient thought since seeing the film, which still plays inside you on a loop. A valley splits open, revealing mirroring paths, a lake like glass. There's no need to name it. You are terrified that the men will hurt you, and you are terrified they won't be bothered. Jack is bathing in the river with his back to you because you love watching him turn to face you. The smile he holds out to you is the same one you attempt to bridle. When you are you, some things will align. Denim hangs off your body with a certain correctness. Those who don't know you may see you as more adjacent to violence. The slurs that apply to you aggregate and split. The scene where the man is wearing plaid strikes the man in a denim shirt, drawing blood before they embrace. Bore no distinction in your mind at 16 when you got snowed into your car with your crush, who you asked to hit you as hard as he could. Sorry, I'm going to read that sentence again. The scene where the man wearing plaid strikes the man in a denim shirt, drawing blood before they embrace, bore no distinction in your mind at 16 when you got snowed into your car with your crush, who you asked to hit you as hard as he could. He refused your request, so you never asked for a kiss. Sequence is crucial. No one will touch you like a man if you aren't one. Despite whatever work you've done on yourself since, the mountain air tastes like an ocean of river stones, gossamer, some frivolous insect shifting into weather. It's too much to ask to become what you have seen. Oh, wow. So this is about being a teenager and watching Brokeback Mountain, I think. Wow, that's a good one. All right, so that was Zan Forrest Phillips, and this has been The Composite. I'm still Deanne Battle, and this was season 4, episode 10, and I still need to do like a House of the Dragons update and some other stuff. So we'll look at that on Thursday at 5. Take care. Bye.